So, a few days ago after the release of this video, Magic the Gathering designer and generally cool guy, Gavin Verhey announced a change to the Commander format. As the release of the next set, Edge of Eternities, any legendary permanent with power and toughness on its front side will be a legal commander. For now, this, of course, just means vehicles, which immediately got me thinking. Of course, the generically good vehicles are what come to mind first, Eska's Chariot and Parhelion 2 being the main two. Even for a moment considered a colorless ramp deck held by the Regalia from the Final Fantasy set. However, when I started digging a little deeper, found something else. A card that could honestly potentially be one of the strongest commanders as of now. Just a card from Assassin's Creed, and yes, it's from Assassin's Creed, so you probably haven't heard of it. Jackdaw. Silly Little Boat is a 4/4 legendary artifact vehicle with crew 3, costing 1 generic plus Izzet, and has whenever Jackdaw deals combat damage to a player, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw a card for each artifact you control. So yeah, seems good. All this deck really wants you to do is toss down a bunch of artifacts, get in with the boat each turn, and draw a bunch of cards. And who doesn't like drawing cards? In terms of how this deck actually wins, though, my dearly beloved Laboratory Maniac and his little brother, Jace Wielder of Mysteries, are what immediately came to mind, since they both win you the game if you draw in an empty library. We'll of course be playing them technically fairly, as we are actually intending to draw our entire deck. Of course, my CEDH-pilled viewers may be wondering why the actually good version of this effect isn't here. Thassa's Oracle is far too much of a combo card and doesn't particularly work with the burst style of card draw this deck is going for, especially since our devotion is going to be likely fairly low. This, combined with the fact that I'm trying to keep this build budget-friendly, means we will be not including the Oracle. Now, Jackdaw has two conditions that we need to fulfill to do the thing, other than just having artifacts lying around. The first being that it actually needs to hit a player. To ensure this as best we can, we're running a full suite of ways to make it unblockable. By far the best of this option is going to be Key to the City, as the cost of discarding a card means basically nothing, since we'll be discarding our entire hand anyway when Jackdaw hits. Now, two of these may look a little out of place, since both Prowler's Helm and Trailblazer's Boots are equipments that will fall off of Jackdaw while it's not crewed. This honestly is fine though, as their equip cost is low enough that even having to re-equip them each turn, they're still two of our better options, costing 2 mana each turn as opposed to the 3 most of these other cards will cost to activate. So since it is the best option here, to help us find specifically Key to the City, we have Muddle the Mixture, which can serve as a counterspell or be transmuted, and Tribute Mage, which can get the key or one of the many other 2 mana artifacts that are in the deck. Neither should be a dead card, no matter when they're drawn. Now, between the fact that we're wheeling our hand probably every turn and the fact that a single Vandal Blast ruined our entire day, like it or not, this is going to be a counterspell heavy deck. An offer you can't refuse, just generic counterspell and Disdainful Stroke will serve as some excellent all-purpose counters, and you can't really go wrong with any of them. We also have a few counterspells that play nicely into our artifacts theme, including Disruption Protocol, Metallic Rebuke, and Diversion Unit, the last of these being a creature that can help crew Jackdaw, add to our artifact count, and in a pinch be turned into a miscast, which we are also running. To round off our counters, we have the classic Izzet Charm, which provides some other options in a pinch, Jwari Disruption, which, while not an excellent counterspell, doubles as a tap land on the backside, Mana Leak, out of bounds to deal with a group threat, always convince someone to help you pay for this, and Phantom Interference, which can make a 2/2 flyer as well as tax a spell. Honestly though, the counterspells of this deck are incredibly flexible. If you want to upgrade the deck more or have some fancy cardboard lying around, these can more or less all be taken out in favor of better options. Mana Drain, for instance, is excellent here as most of our spells are cheap colorless artifacts. Fierce Guardianship is just always a good card in a deck with a cheap commander, and while not directly a counter, Spellskite both adds to your artifact and is a nightmare to deal with. None of these are necessary, mind you, but if you have them lying around, might as well slot them in. Anyway, running all this interaction is great and all, but it can make it hard to play all of our artifacts if we need to be holding up mana for it. Due to this, I added in 3 ways of getting basically everything in the deck flash, with Leyline of Anticipation, Liberator, Urza's Battlethopter, and Shimmermere. Again, if you're looking to upgrade the deck or have one lying around, Vidalcan Orrery is an excellent addition to this deck, as yet another flash-enabling artifact. Now, earlier, I did of course say that there are 2 conditions that need fulfilling for Jackdaw to, well, do the thing. As a vehicle, you of course have to crew it, and crew 3 is a fairly tough ask for a 3-drop, all things considered. But we do have quite a few options for creatures that can by themselves get your ship sailing. Firstly, Mirror Enforcer, Frog Mirror Enforcer, and Sojourner's Companion are all more or less the same card as 7 mana 4/4s with affinity for artifacts, discounting them for each artifact you control. While these may be hard to get for cheap really early on, by turn 4 or so, you should hopefully be able to play them for 3 mana or less, and they will eventually be free, which notably is pretty good since they all add to your artifact count, and as such, your card draw. While now I aim to have most of these creatures be 2 mana, just to make the curve a little nicer, there are a few 3 mana creatures which were just too good to pass up on. Battered Golem is not a good card and could probably be replaced with something better, but hey, it's a creature that can crew and block since it untaps whenever an artifact comes into play, so why not? He looks funny. I like the card. It's going in. And minor spoiler, it's really, really good with one of the upgrades I'll be suggesting later. Feel free to guess which mono blue artificer it is. Surely no one will be able to. Fear of Imposters, though, is a notably better card, as it lets us counter a spell when it enters, and then leaves around a body that can also crew the boat. Last up is a card that probably won't be surprising any of my fellow artifact lovers, as Master of Ethereum is just a really solid card in a deck that's almost entirely artifacts. Trust me, this thing's going to get huge, and you probably won't be crewing with it because of that, but in a pinch, it sure can. And now the 2 mana slot. I somehow managed to scrounge up a surprising amount of 2 mana 3-power artifact creatures with decent abilities, so let's go from the worst to the best to develop the plot of the video. In a tragic 5th place is Piggy Bank, a 3/2 that creates a treasure when it dies. So yeah, if it dies, it'll keep your artifact count the same. Neato. The red mana pip is actually suboptimal, to be honest. Why would that be? We'll find out later. Now, next up in 4th is Surge Engine. It's a cool card. It's a 3/2. Cruise, it's in. I like it. In a respectable 3rd place, we have a relatively new card from Aether Drift, Ticket Tortoise. On enter, it'll give you a treasure if you have less lands than an opponent. If you didn't go first, or in case of green player, this should be able to happen in 2 artifacts for 2 mana, one of which can crew, is pretty sweet. Cool. Now, 2nd place is purely based on my bias. It is my beloved Surge Inger. It gets bigger, and will let you scry when your artifacts inevitably die a little bit. Awesome. Now in 1st place, our best 2 mana creature that crews, in my opinion, is a wonderful gift of beloved Mother Phyrexia, Zenith Chronicler. This might not look great, I get it, but your opponents will love you for this card. Playing this turn 2 into Jackdaw turn 3 to give your opponents a little treat will make everyone be your friend, trust me. And while not the best in this deck, the incidental card draw is never bad. Now a quick aside before everyone's favorite section, ramping. There's a handful of cards in this list that are pretty much here just for the sole purpose of having more artifacts in play, because that's neat. Frogmite is a classic, another affinity creature who doesn't like a free 2/2. Herbal Poultice and Welding Jar are very similar, both acting as free artifacts that can sacrifice to regenerate Jackdaw, although the Poultice does a notably worse job of it, as you need to pay 3 mana to activate it. Next up is Nick Valentine, Private Eye. He gives you some insurance on your artifact creatures, as when they die, they'll give you a clue. It's pretty cool. And now the best card of this group is, of course, Sai, Master Thopterist. Each artifact, being 2 artifacts, is really good in this deck, and the Thopters can easily chump block, as you will be having quite a lot of them. Now, again, leading into some ramp, I do recommend running at least some Graveyard Hate in every deck, so Stone of Eric and Stone Speaker Crystal are both in here. The Stone of Eric isn't a mana rock and can be easily replaced with any of the myriad of 1-mana Graveyard Hate artifacts that exist. If you have it, I strongly recommend Ghost Vacuum, as you can use it to pick off your own artifacts that you have to discard, then get them into play in a giant burst of little dudes, and since they remain artifacts, that can lead to a whole lot of extra cards from your boat. Alright, ramp time. This deck runs a lot of it, since every artifact you play replaces itself as soon as you hit with Jackdaw. Having a lot of ramp will let you consistently empty your hand before refilling it to minimize what you have to discard. So, we of course have a bunch of the classics. We're running the given Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Izzet Signet, Talisman of Creativity, both in colored diamonds, fire, and sky, Ever-Flowing Chalice, which can be a free artifact or a massive rock later in the game, Prismatic Lens, because why not, Oaken Siren, and Silver Mirror, because they're little guys that make mana, and that's fun. Hedron Archive and Thran Dynamo as Big Rocks, and Thought Vessel and Decanter of Endless Water for the no max hand size we will hopefully be needing. Wow, that's a lot of ramp. Much more interesting than those, though, are the fresh from Final Fantasy, Poo Poo UFO, the not so new but still good Scare Tiller, and Walking Atlas. These will all give you ways to get extra lands into play from your hand, or in the case of the Scare Tiller, from your graveyard. With the amount of discard and draw you'll have going on, these should all hopefully be at full value at all times, which is pretty sweet, especially with a fun guy we'll be discussing later in the upgrade section. And now, the uncontestably best ramp in this deck. There are 4 wonderful cards in here that we can use to discount all of our artifacts. Seeing as like all of our artifacts are 2 or 3 mana and a lot of them produce mana, any single one of these is going to do things, and 2 or more gets pretty interesting, to say the least. So yeah, we've got Cloud Key, Enthusiastic Mechanaut, Ethereum Sculptor, and Joyrus Failure. Awesome. They all go in. And that's pretty much it, other than lands. There are a few utility lands I'll mention, but other than that, just toss in all the artifact lands that are in these colors and fill out the rest with whatever utility lands you like. The low pip count of everything in this deck means you can run plenty of colorless utility lands and then just toss in whatever is at mana base you have sitting around. It'll probably work out. The only really relevant utility lands are Treasure Vault, an artifact land that can be cracked to make a bunch of treasures to further pad out your artifact count, and Rogue's Passage, another way to make your Jackdaw unblockable. Reliquary Tower is in here, because of course it is. I'm of the opinion that this card gets put in too many decks that don't use it well, but it's pretty good here. But now, a card that isn't put in enough decks, Buried Ruin, which will let you get back something from your graveyard if you have to discard a good artifact, or if one dies. Now that really is it for the budget build of this deck. However, I do want to discuss some cards that are wonderful additions to this deck if you have them lying around, or want to get your hands on them. These are all cards that definitely do not fit into the budget description though, so I wouldn't really recommend buying them as singles unless you really want to. I can't control you. Getting these out of the way, because even mentioning these wicked, twisted pieces of cardboard almost pains me, but if you have a group that's proxy-friendly, free mana rocks are just disgustingly good here. They're not only free mana, but free card advantage, so yeah, throw in your moxes, I guess. But now, some real options, more or less. I'll suggest 3 cards that are all single-handedly going to add quite a lot to this deck, with each card being, in my opinion, better than the last, because, hey, that seems neat. Do not be fooled into thinking there is rhyme or reason to anything I do. There isn't, but yeah. Surprise, surprise, Urza Lord High Artificer is really good here. Making all of your artifacts tap for mana means you'll basically always have the mana for a counterspell at the very minimum. Neat. This card is scary though, so people will probably try to jump you the moment they see it, and this deck can't really back it up as well as most decks can, so keep that in mind when running it. Next, a personal favorite of mine though, Simulacrum Synthesizer. Yes, the most expensive card I'm going to suggest for this. It's quite expensive, I'll admit that, but we'll give you an extra artifact for all of your 3 mana or more artifacts. As stated previously, more artifacts per artifact is really nice, so I'd recommend slotting in some of those extra 3 mana artifacts if you go for this edition. Notably, the constructs this is going to make are going to be massive, and will be excellent blockers, or honestly, probably just get to the point of killing players themselves by making them unblockable. Go crazy. Finally, card that is actually surprisingly good here and will just straight up win you games if it sticks. Murag, Fury of Akum. I hope I am pronouncing that right. Is a 6 mana 6/6 with an irrelevant ability, and when a land enters your control, if it's your main phase, you get an extra combat and untap all your creatures for that combat. What this effectively does is turn all of your dorks that can tap to put a land into play into extra combat engines, and with the amount of cards you're drawing, get enough combats in one turn and you can, in fact, just draw your entire deck and win on the spot. That's pretty cool. And that really is it this time. Thank you for watching. The full deck list is in the description if you want to check it out, especially if you want to see my utility lands of choice. Drop a like if you liked this, and feel free to comment what you want me to do next. May it be reviewing a deck, a new deck tech, or just talking about anything Magic the Gathering related. I'm really open to anything. So, until next time, I'm the Esper Devil, and see ya.